Welcome to the Semper AI Digest. I'm Tomas, your AI research lead, always scanning the horizon for what's next.
And I'm Aiva. Together, we keep you sharp, informed, and ahead of the curve.
Let's get into it.
All right, so Google just dropped something that might actually change how we think about AI reasoning, like fundamentally. We're talking Gemini 2.5 Pro with what they're calling deep research mode, and the early reports are kind of wild.
Hey everyone, welcome to Semper AI Digest. I'm Aiva.
And I'm Tomas. So yeah, Gemini 2.5 Pro launched this morning, and we've also got news about OpenAI's latest o3 update that's showing some really interesting performance gains, plus a bunch of quick hits, including some drama around synthetic training data that you're definitely going to want to hear about.
Okay, but let's start with Gemini 2.5 Pro, because this is actually a pretty big release from Google. What are we looking at here?
Right, so Google officially announced this today on their blog. Gemini 2.5 Pro is the next iteration, and the headline feature is this deep research mode. Think of it like, you know how when you're researching something complex, you don't just read one article. You open like 20 tabs, cross-reference information, go down rabbit holes, come back up.
And then 3 hours later, you've somehow ended up reading about the history of rubber ducks when you started researching cloud infrastructure.
Exactly. But okay, this is doing that in a much more structured way. According to Google's documentation, you give it a research question, and it can spend anywhere from several minutes to over an hour autonomously searching, reading, synthesizing information across multiple sources. It's creating what they're calling comprehensive research reports with citations.
So this is different from just using a model with web search enabled.
Very different. Web search is like you ask a question, it does a quick lookup, gives you an answer with maybe a couple sources. This is more like assigning a research assistant a project and coming back later to find a full report on your desk. Google's saying it can handle queries that would normally take a human researcher days to compile.
Okay, that's actually pretty compelling. What are the benchmarks showing?
So they tested it on a research quality benchmark they developed called Research QA, and it's scoring around 89% on comprehensive accuracy compared to expert human researchers. That's up from, previous models weren't even in this category because they couldn't sustain that kind of multi-step research process.
Wait, hold on. Research QA is Google's own benchmark?
Yeah, it is. They developed it specifically for evaluating research capabilities. Now, to be fair, they've made the benchmark public so other teams can verify, but you're right to note that.
It doesn't mean it's not legitimate, but I'd want to see third-party evaluations too. What are people actually using this for? Like, what's the practical application here?
So the examples Google shared are pretty varied. One was a venture capitalist using it to do deep competitive analysis on an emerging market sector. Another was an academic using it to compile research on a really niche medical question across hundreds of papers. Oh, and there's one where someone asked it to trace the historical development of a specific economic theory through different schools of thought.
Okay, that academic use case is interesting. If it can actually read through hundreds of papers and pull out relevant findings with proper citations, that's a huge time saver. But I'm curious about the citation accuracy, because that's where these things usually fall apart.
Right, and Google's specifically addressing that. They're claiming the citation system is built to be verifiable. Each claim in the report links back to specific sources, and apparently the model is trained to be conservative. Like if it can't find strong support for something, it notes that uncertainty rather than just making something up.
Which is a big deal, because we've seen models hallucinate sources before, like confidently citing papers that don't exist.
Oh yeah, that's been a huge problem. But the early user reports on Twitter and in the Google AI forums are actually pretty positive on this front. People are saying they've been spot checking the citations and they're holding up. Obviously more testing needed, but it's promising.
What's the pricing looking like?
So that's interesting. The base Gemini 2.5 Pro is priced similarly to their previous tier, but the deep research mode actually costs more because of the compute time involved. Google's doing a token-based pricing model where you're essentially paying for the research time. They're estimating that a typical deep research query might cost anywhere from $3 to $15 depending on complexity.
$3 to $15 per query. That's, okay, if it's replacing hours of human research time, that's actually pretty reasonable from a business perspective.
Exactly. Like if you're a researcher billing at $100 an hour and this saves you 5 hours, $15 is nothing. The question is whether it actually delivers that quality consistently.
Right, and I think that's going to vary a lot by use case. Like for factual research where sources are important, this could be huge. For things that require more subjective judgment or domain expertise to evaluate sources, I'm more skeptical.
That's fair. Oh, one more thing on the technical side. Google mentioned that 2.5 Pro also has improved multimodal capabilities, so it can now process and analyze video content as part of its research, not just text and images.
Oh, interesting. So you could ask it to research something and it could pull from video lectures or presentations?
Exactly. They showed an example where someone asked it to compile information about a specific architectural style, and it pulled from not just articles, but also video tours of buildings, architectural lectures, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's actually really cool. I mean, there's so much information locked up in video formats that's hard to search effectively. If this can actually parse that and integrate it into research,
Yeah, it opens up a whole new dimension of source material. All right, so that's Gemini 2.5 Pro, available starting today through Google AI Studio and the API. The deep research mode is rolling out first to their premium tier users and will expand over the next few weeks.
cool. All right, what's going on with OpenAI's O3?
Okay, so this is a smaller update, but it's noteworthy. OpenAI pushed an update to O3 that they're internally calling O3 Turbo V2, and it's showing some interesting performance characteristics. This came through their API release notes and a post on their developer forum.
Is this the same O3 that they released in December, or?
Same family, yeah. So O3 was their big reasoning model that came out late last year with that insane ARC AGI score. This is an iteration on the faster, cheaper version, O3 Turbo. The V2 update seems to be focused on improving efficiency without sacrificing too much on performance.
What kind of improvements are we talking about?
So according to OpenAI's benchmarks, they're seeing about a 30% reduction in average reasoning time for most queries, with comparable or slightly better accuracy on standard reasoning benchmarks. The big one is GPQA, where it's now hitting around 87.2%, up from about 85.5% on the previous version.
And GPQA is the graduate level science questions benchmark.
Exactly, yeah. Physics, chemistry, biology questions at a PhD level. So a couple percentage points might not sound like a lot, but at that level of difficulty, it's actually pretty significant.
What about the speed improvement? Like, how does that translate in practical terms?
So for a typical reasoning-heavy query, think something like a complex math problem or a multi-step logical puzzle. The previous version might take 15 to 20 seconds. This one's averaging around 10 to 14 seconds for the same type of problem.
Okay, so still not instant, but noticeably faster.
Right, and that matters for user experience. Like, 20 seconds feels like a long time when you're waiting for a response. Getting that down to 10 or 12 makes it feel more conversational.
Is there any insight into how they achieved this? Like, what changed under the hood?
OpenAI didn't go into a ton of detail, but the release notes mentioned optimizations to the inference pathway and reasoning token efficiency, which I think basically means they found ways to prune the reasoning process without cutting out important steps.
So the model's thinking more efficiently, not just faster.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know when you solve a problem and then later you figure out a shortcut that gets you to the same answer with fewer steps? It's kind of like that, but the model learned to do it systematically.
That's cool. What's the pricing situation?
Still the same pricing tier as before. O3 Turbo is positioned as their mid-range reasoning model, more capable than standard GPT-4 level models on reasoning tasks, but less expensive than the full O3. This update doesn't change the pricing, so basically, you're getting better performance for the same cost.
Which is always nice. Are developers reporting any issues with the update, or is it pretty smooth?
From what I'm seeing in the forums, the rollout's been pretty smooth. A few people noting that the response style is slightly different, like the reasoning explanations are a bit more concise, which makes sense given the efficiency focus, but no major bugs or regressions that people are flagging.
Concise reasoning explanations might actually be a good thing. Sometimes those reasoning models can be a bit verbose.
Oh, for sure. Like, I appreciate seeing the thinking process, but sometimes it's like, okay, I get it. You can move on.
Right, exactly. Okay, so faster, slightly better performance, same price. Solid update.
Yeah, iterative improvement, but a meaningful one. And I think it signals that OpenAI is still actively improving the O series, which is good to see. They're not just resting on their laurels of that initial O3 launch.
Makes sense. They've got competition now, with Google's reasoning capabilities improving too.
For sure. Speaking of competition, we should talk about what Meta's up to because they just released something interesting with Llama 3.2 Vision.
Oh yeah, I saw this. They added some new image understanding capabilities.
Yeah, so Meta put out an official blog post today announcing enhanced vision capabilities for Llama 3.2. This is the open source model, which is important context. They've upgraded the image understanding to handle more complex visual reasoning tasks.
What does that mean in practical terms?
So the previous version could do basic image captioning, object detection, that kind of thing. The new version can do more complex stuff like spatial reasoning, understanding relationships between objects, following multi-step visual instructions. They're calling it compositional visual understanding.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so like before, you could show it a picture and ask, what's in this image? And it would tell you a cat, a table, a book. Now you can ask something like, Is the book closer to the cat or to the edge of the table? And it can reason through the spatial relationships to answer.
Oh, okay. So it's actually understanding the scene structure, not just identifying objects.
Exactly. And they're showing some pretty impressive examples. One was giving it a diagram of a complex machine and asking it to trace the flow of a specific component through the system. Another was showing it a cluttered room and asking it to provide step-by-step instructions for organizing specific items.
That's useful. What are the benchmarks showing?
So on visual reasoning benchmarks like Clever and VQA-V2, it's scoring competitively with some of the closed source models, not beating GPT-4V or Gemini Pro Vision, but getting into that conversation, which is impressive for an open source model.
Yeah, and that's the key thing here. This is open source, so people can actually run this locally, fine-tune it for specific use cases.
Right, and Meta's releasing the weights under their standard Llama license. So if you're a company that wants vision capabilities but doesn't want to send all your images to an API endpoint, this is a real option now.
What are the hardware requirements? Because vision models can be pretty hefty.
So they're offering it in a few different sizes. The full version is pretty beefy. You're looking at needing at least 40 gigs of VRAM to run it effectively. But they also have a quantized version that can run on consumer GPUs, though with some performance trade-off.
Okay, so enterprise-friendly and hobbyist accessible. That's a good range.
Yeah, Meta's been pretty good about that with the Llama series. They want broad adoption, so they're making sure it's accessible at different scales.
Are there any interesting use cases emerging already? Like, what are people building with this?
So it's early, this literally just came out today, but people are already experimenting. I saw someone in the Llama Discord built a quick prototype that helps visually impaired users navigate spaces by describing spatial relationships in real time through their phone camera.
Oh, wow, that's a really good application.
Yeah, and someone else was testing it for warehouse inventory management, like taking a photo of a shelf and having it verify that items are in the correct positions according to a planogram.
Those are both super practical use cases. I like seeing that kind of immediate practical application rather than just demos.
For sure, and I think we're going to see a lot more as people get their hands on it. The open source community moves fast.
Definitely. All right, what else are we covering today?
We've got a bunch of quick hits that are pretty interesting. Should we run through those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, first up, Anthropic quietly updated Claude to handle longer context windows more efficiently. Their engineering blog notes that Claude 3.5 Sonnet can now process 200K token contexts with about 40% better recall on information from the middle of the context window.
Oh, that's actually significant. The lost in the middle problem has been a real issue with long context models.
Yeah, exactly. Models tend to pay more attention to the beginning and end of long contexts and miss stuff in the middle. Anthropic says they've improved the attention mechanism to address this, and early testing from users seems to confirm it.
Nice. What else?
Microsoft announced that GitHub Copilot is adding a new feature called Workspace Understanding that lets it reason about your entire project structure, not just the current file. So it can make suggestions that take into account your architecture, dependencies, related files, all of that.
Oh, that could be really helpful, like actual context-aware suggestions rather than just autocomplete.
Exactly. It's rolling out to Copilot Pro subscribers over the next 2 weeks.
Cool.
All right, here's an interesting one. There's been some drama in the research community about synthetic training data. A new paper out of Stanford is claiming that training on AI-generated data leads to what they're calling model collapse over successive generations.
Okay, explain that.
So the idea is if you train a model on data generated by another model, and then train another model on that data and keep doing this, the quality degrades over time. Kind of like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
That makes intuitive sense, but I thought synthetic data was supposed to be a solution for data scarcity.
Right, so that's the tension. The Stanford researchers aren't saying synthetic data is useless. They're saying you need to be really careful about how you use it. Mixing synthetic data with real human-generated data seems to be fine, but going purely synthetic creates problems.
Has this been verified by other teams?
It's getting a lot of attention right now. The paper just dropped on arXiv this morning, so it's too early for full peer review or replication, but the methodology looks solid and it's generating a lot of discussion on Twitter and in ML forums.
Yeah, I mean, this matters a lot given how much synthetic data is being used in training now.
For sure. Something to keep an eye on as more research comes out.
What else you got?
Cohere released a new embedding model that's specifically optimized for multilingual retrieval. It supports 109 languages and is showing really strong performance on cross-lingual search tasks.
Oh, interesting. So you could search in one language and retrieve results in another?
Exactly. Like searching in English and finding relevant documents in Japanese or Arabic or whatever. Really useful for international companies or research applications.
Yeah, that's a real need. What's the pricing?
Competitive with OpenAI's embedding models, maybe slightly cheaper. And it's available through their API starting today.
Nice. Anything else?
Yeah, one more quick one. Hugging Face announced a new initiative called Model Cards Plus, where they're adding standardized fields for reporting environmental impact, training data provenance, and known limitations.
Oh, I like that. More transparency is always good.
Yeah, and they're working with several major model providers to adopt this standard. The idea is to make it easier to compare models not just on performance, but on these other important factors.
That's great. I mean, we need more of this kind of standardization in the field.
Agreed. All right, I think that covers our quick hits.
Solid lineup today. Before we wrap up, should we talk a bit more about the implications of that Gemini research mode? Because I've been thinking about it and I have some thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you thinking?
So I think the obvious application is professional research, right? Academics, analysts, due diligence, all of that. But I'm wondering about the education angle. Like, what does it mean for students if there's a tool that can compile comprehensive research reports?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, there's the obvious concern about academic integrity.
Right, but I'm also thinking about whether this might actually change how we teach research skills. Like, if the mechanical parts of literature review can be automated, maybe we can focus more on critical evaluation and synthesis.
That's an interesting way to think about it. Instead of spending time finding sources, you spend time evaluating their quality and relevance.
Exactly. Though that assumes the tool is reliable enough to be used in that way, which I think is still TBD.
Fair point. And there's probably a transition period where educators are going to have to figure out how to adapt assignments and expectations.
Yeah, it's going to be messy for a while. But I think the genie's out of the bottle on this kind of capability. Better to figure out how to use it effectively than try to ban it.
Agreed. And I think the same applies to the professional world. Like, these tools are going to change workflows, and the companies and individuals that figure out how to integrate them effectively are going to have an advantage.
For sure. Though I do worry a bit about over-reliance. Like, if people stop developing their own research skills because they're leaning on AI tools.
Yeah, that's a real concern. It's kind of like GPS navigation, right? Super useful tool, but now there's a whole generation that can't navigate without it.
Exactly. And with something as important as research and information evaluation, that could be a problem.
True. I think the key is using these tools to augment human capability, not replace human judgment.
Right. The AI can gather and compile information, but humans still need to evaluate it critically, understand the context, make decisions based on it.
Yeah, and that's where domain expertise still matters a lot. Like, the AI might compile information about a medical treatment, but you still need a doctor to interpret it in the context of a specific patient.
Exactly. All right, I think that's a good place to wrap. We went deep today.
We did. So just to recap, Gemini 2.5 Pro with Deep Research Mode is out today. Pretty big deal for research applications. OpenAI's O3 Turbo got faster and slightly better at reasoning. Meta upgraded Llama's vision capabilities, and a bunch of other interesting updates across the ecosystem.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who's trying to keep up with AI news. We make this show because we genuinely love this stuff and want to help people understand what's actually happening in the field.
Yeah, and if you have thoughts on any of today's stories, or if you're using any of these tools and have experiences to share, you can find us on social media. We're on Twitter, or X, I guess we're supposed to call it, and LinkedIn.
We're Semper AI on both platforms. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening.
Catch you next time.